are joined right now by our good friend of the ACLJ, U.S. Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma. And Senator Lankford, right now we've been talking about on the broadcast today, you are at the March for Life. So my first question for you is just, what is the mood like? Because we know there's this major case, the Dobbs case. There's a lot of positive vibes around that the Supreme Court may do. And so for this 49th March for Life, was it a different kind of mood this year?
Let me just tell you, it is freezing cold out here, but it is like being at a college football game. There is so much energy and enthusiasm in the crowd. It is really remarkable. I've been at, I don't know how many March for Life events, but it is a different kind of electricity this year where we have so much anticipation that we're going to finally be in a post-Roe America in the months ahead.
I just said, this is Jay, Senator. I just said to Mike Pompeo, was just on with us, our senior counsel for global affairs. I said I didn't know if I was going to see it in my lifetime, the overturning of Roe versus Wade, but I think we're on the cusp. I mean, it could be literally any week now. I mean, I think we're getting down to where, in about a month, you start really looking for when the opinion's going to come out. But talking about kind of a whole life approach, I know you're at the March for Life right now, but you've got legislation right now that you've put forward that deals with school choice. And that is something that when COVID hit, we've always been involved in, but we really got involved. We helped 1,800 families during that period of time. Tell us about this legislation.
Yeah, the basics of this is you have to allow parents to be able to make decisions for what's best for their child. And it's even child to child. And this is not a discriminatory issue on public schools. This would be public schools, private schools, parochial schools, charter schools, magnet schools, home schools, all of those options to be able to be out there for those individual parents to be able to make a decision on what's right for their individual child. You may have an older child and a younger child, or have 5 children and know they're all different. And so right now how we're set up is if you live in this house, no matter what your child's like, what their educational needs are, this is what you're mandated to go to. We know that's not best for children. To give them more individual options and give those parents more options, that strengthens how we do education in America. And it gives the option for especially faith-based parents to be able to make sure they're guarding their kids to be in a place that doesn't discourage their faith, but actually matches their faith.
I feel like, Senator Lankford, the school choice movement, which we've been a part of, and educating people, because people get nervous sometimes about it, but when COVID hit, it got so much more support. So many more people were open to the ideas, whether it's vouchers, whether it's straight up school choice, these different programs, and they're just sick and tired of hearing, and we hear it every day from some school administrator, that it's not the parents, it's the state and the school board that should be setting, and the parents should stay out of it. And people are kind of sick and tired of that.
Yeah, parents need to know that they're not being cut out of their own child's education. Parents need to know that they're being supported, not discouraged in their own child's education. They don't want to send their child to a school that their school tells them their parents are not good decision makers for their family and undercuts their families. They want to know that they're an active part of their child's education. And every teacher will tell you education is better if parents are more involved. So the key issue about this is let's keep parents involved and let's give those kids the options to be able to go where it's best for that child.
One of the things
by the way, not anti-public school. Everybody says school choice is anti-public school. No, it's not. The vast majority of our kids will be in our public schools. We want those to be strong as well. It's not anti-public school, but it is giving every parent the option, even within public schools.
Senator, one of the things you talk about in the legislation, in the preamble actually, is the critical race theory issue, and that has become a big trigger. And Harry Hutchison, our senior counsel for policy, but also law professor, has talked about this issue of critical race theory. And I'll go to the senator in a moment. But Harry, I think give a really tight definition of what that is.
Well, critical race theory is essentially a disguised form of Marxism that would basically separate the parents from the educational process. And so, in other words, students would become controlled primarily by the state. And this would be a state-led and controlled by progressive elites who seek to destroy and overthrow the foundations of the United States and the rule of law.
But and Senator, my own grandkids, and you're seeing this creeping into private schools even, that they've had to deal with this whole critical race theory. And when these are 6 and 7, 8, 9-year-olds, they're not even thinking about race in any negative way. And all of a sudden now they're being really put in a very awkward situation, Senator.
It is. It's incredibly painful when we see this. the fight here is they'll say, well, you're just anti-history. For those individuals of us that are passionate about our history and are passionate about our nation, we love going back and talking about our founding and our principles. And we look at our country, warts and all, and say, here's mistakes that were made and here's how we've grown. But here's the strength of our Constitution that allows us, even when we made mistakes as a nation, to be able to continue to be able to make changes and to be able to grow as a country. We're stronger, we're better as a nation than we were 200 years ago, but we're not trying to destroy the foundation, which is what critical race theory does, is to say all that's evil, everything else needs to shift. People need to be guilty for the sins of their great-grandparents and need to face condemnation for that. Each person stands before God under that accountability for their own actions and their own life and their own decisions on that. But where we find a lack of opportunity for individuals, we destroy that as a nation and say every person has equal responsibility, equal opportunity, and people are not punished for the consequences of their grandparents.
Senator Lankford, why is teaching, you alluded to it, and I think this critical race theory is so important that we focus on the horrible nature of what it seeks to do. But say once again, why is teaching students that they are guilty or victimized based on the color of their skin an anti-American concept?
It is an anti-American concept because of the most basic principles of our nation, that every person is responsible for their own action and every person has the opportunity to be able to succeed. And where that opportunity is blocked, we take away any barriers to that so that each person can do that. But this critical race theory teaches in its core that there are oppressed and oppressors. And if you have a certain color of skin, you're an oppressor no matter who you are. If you're a certain color of skin, then you're an oppressed no matter who you are. That violates our most basic principle that every person is created equal in the image of God and every person has equal opportunity in the greatest nation on earth. So we don't want to teach people, sorry, you can't succeed because you're in this class, you're an oppressed class, or that you shouldn't try to succeed because you're an oppressor class. We want everyone to be able to succeed in our nation.
Senator Lankford, final question for you. I know you're at the march. I appreciate you joining us live from the March for Life. But the idea, too, that unfortunately right now, I mean, I see it's a partisan issue. Even in Build Back Better, we saw the provision for early childhood education, but it excluded religious schools who provide the majority of that early childhood education in our country, and they wanted it cut out. So this is another one of those key distinctions between the left, which is controlled by the teachers' unions, and what the state telling you, everything, and the parents, scared to even show up at a meeting, versus a conservative approach to giving power back to the parents.
Yep, that's exactly right. And the more that we can actually say, hey, we're not discriminating against people based on their faith or lack of faith, that in America, in this great nation, you can have a faith, change your faith, or have no faith at all, and you're respected. What the left wants to do is to say, I'm sorry, if you're people of faith, then we want to exclude you from being connected with your own government. We have multiple Supreme Court cases, the Trinity Lutheran, multiple others, that continue to affirm that we cannot have a nation based on our constitutional principles where people of faith are deliberately excluded by their own government. But the left seems to be obsessed with finding new ways to exclude people of faith in their own government.
Senator James Lankford talking to us from the March for Life in cold Washington, D.C. Senator, thanks as always for being with us. We really appreciate it.
You bet. Glad to be able to even talk with my lips so frozen.
All right, but we appreciate it.